And we're live. What's up, everybody? I missed you all. It's been a few weeks. Jewish holiday season, you could call it. For our non-Jewish community members, these months from I guess it's dependent on the Jewish calendar, but it's from around end of August or beginning of September till October. There's 3-4 holidays. Which sounds fun, but it's too much, too condensed. You can't figure out what day of the week it is. You go to work one day, the next day you have 4 days off. It's pretty confusing. I personally think that the holidays should be more evenly distributed throughout the year, but I obviously don't have a say in this. But great to be back. Great to have you all here. Today's going to be a nice, fun, lighthearted episode. Cringe take review number 2. The first one was a wild success, so why not do it again? Oh, by the way, this is also being streamed to Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, not just YouTube. We're testing it out, seeing how it goes, seeing if we get some viewers there. But our primary audience is certainly on YouTube. Chat, why don't you let us know where in the world you're watching from? How's everyone doing today? Let us know. Listen, I have around 10 cringe takes that I consolidated. We might need more, so anybody watching this, send me some cringe takes. You could send them. Can you send a link in chat? I don't think so. Send it to me on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever. Just send it to me and we'll review it. Shout out to Sulha Discord community for helping put together a lot of these cringe takes. And shout out to Bad Middle East Takes Twitter page. That's essentially what they do. They talk about, they share people's bad takes. So they helped me as well. I just went to their page and took a bunch of stuff. Cool. Tel Aviv, Kansas, Sweden, Connecticut. Cool. We got a nice crew. Canada, Berlin. Not word. He's asking, how do we find on Twitch? Type in Adar Weinreb on Twitch. I believe it's under my name. We've never promoted there. I don't think I have any followers there or anything. It's just there. Maybe one day we'll be more active. Just YouTube seems to be where most of our traffic is. YouTube pays. It seems like YouTube's our home for now. Quick shout out to our Patreon Visionary members. Hold on. I don't have my notes open. We have Trivium Energy Pty Ltd, SOG Cannabis, Max Marine, Geffen Posner, Adam Becker, Maya, Kimberly, Rajia, Nate Hindman, Julian Melser, and our one and only legendary member, Speedy Weedy. Speedy Weedy is, I think, a cannabis delivery company in California. You can find a link to their site in chat. We'll start reviewing these cringe takes, and then I think we'll go with the flow. Maybe we'll bring on some community members, little dialogue session, a little chat. We're going with the flow. Jacobs, you're asking Adar, can you let me be able to talk in the Discord? What do you mean by that? Oh, if you just join the Discord, you need to get accepted. Yeah, write an introduction, and one of the mods will give you permissions to the rest of the channels. Salam shalom. What's up? I see you here. Good to see you all. Good to see you near. Great. So let's do this. Share screen. Farad, I see you want me to answer. Sir, this is Sulha from UK. Hey Farad, good to see you here. Good to see you here. Cool. Share screen. For those wondering where I am, I'm in the marina in Herzliya. Herzliya is a city right north of Tel Aviv. It's actually named after Theodor Herzl, believe it or not. Where is it? Cool. Let's see how this looks. I wish I had a better way to do this. You see the whole, whatever. We'll make it work. maybe in the future we'll find a better way to display these memes. Probably we need some like graphic designer to give us a nice display working on it. Or it goes, isn't it cringe to complain for not having enough cringe? Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Cool. So we're going to start with one. So look, I blocked out most of the names. The only names I left in are people who are very big influencers or NGOs, because they're in the public sphere enough that I don't have any problem, calling them out publicly. And by the way, almost everybody I'm calling out here or whose name is shown has been invited on the program. And anybody can come and challenge my critique of them, or we can talk about a different conversation. But just so you know, the invitation is open to pretty much everybody you're going to see on this on these reviews. And then there's some like smaller accounts that have like shitty takes. I'm not going to publicly show their name because I don't want to shame them. Anyways, this one's from, I'm not even going to read the names. If you could see it, you could look them up. That's up to you. But this is a pretty big pro-Israel influencer and a pretty endless source of cringe takes, I must say. Free Israel from Palestinian occupation. Okay. Where do we start? So, first of all, I mean, what's even going on here? I don't even know what he's getting at. I feel like there's a little nuance missing, but to me, this just comes off as like a form of I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say sticks to me, bounces off of you, bounces off of me and sticks to you. Like, that children's saying, that's what I feel he's saying. It's like, cool. Palestinians talk about military occupation. What they're describing is the reality of living under another nation's military rule. This is just not a relevant comparison. There's many critiques Israelis can make about Palestinians and the PA and the Palestinian narrative, right? We hear these critiques all the time, but like make a genuine argument. Don't just take their argument and just change the words around and rehash it. It's like intellectually shallow. It's like peanut brained. It means nothing. But interestingly enough, this gets thousands of likes and shares. Like this is the state of much of activism today. Quite sad. So again, when Palestinians talk about occupation, they're describing living under another nation's military. They're talking about them not having a truly autonomous government. That their government is actually, in a sense, a proxy for the occupying force, right? This is just not comparable. Any criticism you want to give of Palestinians, and there are plenty, it's just not this. This is just not a genuine argument. It's dumb. Like, to put it simply, it's dumb. And Hanania, if you want to come on here and debate me on this, I'd be more than happy to have you on. But this is just, and I get it. You want clout, you want views, you want clicks. I get it. But like, what are you accomplishing? Are you changing any minds? What are you doing with posts like this? Nothing. Cool. We're going to continue. Next. When a group of people is trying to genocide you, it's not wrong to genocide them back in self-defense. The Jews are the invaders and the ones that initiated the Israel-Palestine conflict. You are deranged if you don't think Hamas has a right to defend itself. Well, to unpack here. So first of all, honestly, this might be a troll account. Like you see, there's the hammer and sickle, communist. Is that a Chinese flag? It's a little small for me. I'm pretty sure that's a Chinese flag. And Biden is a fascist. I'll tell you the tricky thing about interpreting this is that many people in the pro-Palestine camp, they use the term genocide very loosely. They use it to describe something that's not genocide. So if this person, right, we don't know what this person means by genocide. Maybe it just means, I don't know, one side was mean to the other side. That's genocide, right? Like that's how loosely it's used today. So this can almost make sense, right? Let's be charitable with our interpretation. When one side is mean to the other side, it's not wrong for the other side to be mean in self-defense, if that's what they mean by genocide. But if they actually mean genocide, which is the attempted extermination of a group of people or the mass murder of a group of people, which isn't inaccurate description of the Israel-Palestine conflict. And those who are familiar with the program know that terms like ethnic cleansing, occupation, apartheid, these are all terms that I actually don't give pushback towards. Many of our viewers do. Many of our guests have, in all fairness. Most Jews do give pushback towards those terms, but I personally don't. I think that those terms all have legitimacy, whether they're 100% accurate or accurate enough that doesn't bother me. I'm okay with it. But genocide, it's not even in the realm of accurate. So let's say he actually means genocide. He's wrong for assuming that one side's genociding the other. But even if one side's genociding, you still shouldn't endorse a genocide of the other side, right? Normally, when genocide occurs, it's a state institution doing it. It's military, right? To say that the response to genocide is to start genociding another group of people is essentially saying because your military is doing something, then we're just going to start mass murdering all civilians. So regardless of how you want to define genocide here, the law, it's just flimsy logic. I mean, this might not even be a real account, but we see enough of this stuff on a day-to-day basis that it might just be real. Whoever this ML, I just realized I left his name in there. Him, her, they. I'm actually not sure. Whoever you are, let's get you on the program. Let's talk about this. Okay. Can we move on? Yeah, let's move on this. Okay, this is another one in a similar category. If if every Israeli citizen is required to be an IDF terrorist, that would make every citizen either an IDF terrorist or a former IDF terrorist. So where exactly are the civilians? Fighting IDF terrorists is merely counterterrorism. What's wrong with counterterrorism? Yep. We got a sharp guy here. So, first of all, the vast majority of IDF soldiers are not combat positions. I don't remember the number, but I believe it's something like 13% are in combat positions. The case could be made, though. Even if you're not in a non-combat position, you're in a supportive position, then you're still responsible. But you could continue with that logic and say, well, any taxpayers are actually paying taxes to support the military, so they're guilty as well. We hear this cringe logic from the pro-Israel side as well. It's fringe, but we do hear it. We say, yeah, if Palestinian civilians die, whatever, they support Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Or the most extreme. By the way, can you guys hear background music? Because we got a little family of 5. We got a family of 5 passing by. Let me know in chat if you can hear what's going on in the background. Can you guys hear that? We'll continue. Anyways. Cool. Hold on one second. חבר'ה, אני באמצע שידור חי, אתם יכולים קצת שוקרן, חבר'ה, תודה רבה. תודה. Okay. We're all friends here. That's a nice Arab family. We're all friends. See? Anyways. Yeah, Iran, I'm in a public space. It's not, I asked them very kindly. I just said, hey, I'm doing a live stream. Can you just please walk a little bit further? There's like a walkway right here. I'm at the marina. There's a walkway right here, and they stopped right in front of where I'm sitting and just started chatting. So I asked them to move ahead a little bit and continue it. They're very understanding. That's what a cohesive society is all about: mutual respect and understanding. So where were we with this? I mean, dude, it's like this is obviously just a way to justify harming civilians, right? Like you just want to say that any Israeli you're allowed to kill, right? Because they're in the IDF, or one day will be in the IDF, right? Children, can you kill children? Well, they're going to serve one day, right? Is that the logic? These are not the friends Palestinians need and deserve. And honestly, this person, I don't remember. I blocked out the name. This could even just be a Westerner that's supporting killing Israelis. Cringe. Next. Oh, man. This was a reply. I don't know who he was replying to, but it doesn't even matter. He's not Palestinian, just an Arab who occupies Judea and Samaria, not West Bank. From the river to the sea, it's just Israel. We'll never accept another Arab state. Enough is enough. Let me change the wording around. Two sides of the same coin. He's not Israeli, just a Jew who occupies Palestine. From the river to the sea, it's just Palestine. We'll never accept a Jewish state. Slightly different, but, what just happened to my screen share? But what's going on? Okay. Cool. I mean, like this is just such a common narrative on both sides that I wish we could get over, right? Like we're here doing hard work, trying to have nuanced conversations, trying to foster a greater understanding of the Israel-Palestine conflict. And then you have these keyboard warriors who come with like a level of confidence and arrogance. And they don't realize that in delegitimizing another people's identity, all they do is fuel the same delegitimization of the other side, right? So people who say there is no Israel and people say there is no Palestine are perceived as ideological opponents, but they're really two sides of the same coin. They're fuel to each other's fire. I'd like to see more of the open-minded, peace-oriented activists call out this shit. And there's a fair amount that call it out, but I mean, this is just still way too common, and not enough people like call it for what it is, which is absolute garbage. Floodland 99 asks a good question. Are there truths in the cringe? Yeah, actually, I would say that you could say something that is true in a way that's cringe. There's, I don't want to get. Oh, this is an interesting setting. Huh? How do you guys like this one? I'm bigger. Are there other settings? No, that doesn't work. We'll play with it. So it's commonly said, like, you could condemn what somebody says, and then they'll often say, but it's the truth. So, or someone will say, I'm only interested in truth. This should be seen as a red flag, generally speaking, because truth is not simply black and white. And let me explain this. It's true that the actual truth is, right? For example, the number of stars in the galaxy, there's an actual number. There's like an objective number that is, we don't know what it is, but there's a truth to that, right? That's just one example. But the way we view the world is not just based off facts, it's narratives. And our narratives are not built on facts, but supported by facts. But the question is, how much importance or weight do we give certain facts? Right. So, for example, you'll hear the Jewish narrative about us returning to our indigenous homeland after thousands of years in exile. And we came here peacefully, but the Palestinians wouldn't accept us. So we've just been defending ourselves for 70 plus years or 100 plus years. So right? You hear this, you hear the Jewish narrative, and then you hear the Palestinian narrative. These colonizers came, they kicked us out of their homes, they've been continuously oppressing us for 100 plus years. These two truths are they're not inherently contradictory. It's just putting an emphasis on different sets of truths and facts. So somebody who says, all I care is about truth or facts, which facts? Which ones carry the most weight? Which ones are more important to you? And that has to do with your ideology, your belief, your bias, right? So anybody says, oh, I'm interested in facts, I would question that. And when somebody responds to something they say, but it's the truth isn't always useful. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm walking down the street and I see somebody who's clearly overweight. I can go to them and say, hey, you're fat. I'm telling the truth. But is there any value to that truth? No. So truth devoid of some positive value should not be cherished, right? A truth can be unnecessary and nasty. So again, obviously we shouldn't lie. Obviously we shouldn't omit important information. Obviously we should try to be as truthful as possible. But let's be honest. To just say that I'm interested in truth or what I'm saying is truthful, that's not enough for it to be a valuable statement. Not even close. Just catching up on some comments. Nir's asking if I live in Kfar Verdim, why I'm in the marina so often. So, my dad lives in Marina Herzliya. Yeah, he lives on a boat. So I'm on a boat right now. You want to see it? Be a little cooler. That's the living room in there. You go around there, then you get to the front of the boat. It's been his home for like 10 years now. He actually bought it in New Jersey and then moved back. He shipped it to Greece and then he sailed from Greece to Israel. And that was his return after living in the US for 20 years. A pretty cool story. So I work in Tel Aviv. So I often come to the boat to sleep when I need a place to sleep. Cool. Let's go to the next one. This is one of those very cringe Twitter accounts. Assad, the Zionist Israeli Jew. Iran, the Zionist Israeli Jew lover. Lebanon, the Zionist Israeli Jew lover. Pakistan, the Zionist Israeli Jew lover. First of all, he spelled Israeli wrong over here. I don't know, like what's going on? It's obviously fueled in some anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about like, you know, Israel having world domination and controlling things behind the scenes. But it's like, I don't know, dude. Like, Iran is probably one of the greatest threats to Israel. So is Hezbollah. We're literally not close. We're not friends with Assad at all. At all. Pakistan. Or is it pronounced Pakistan? Can somebody tell me the correct pronunciation there? Pakistan, I guess they're so far that we're not in conflict with them, but there's no support. No. I mean, these are just words. This means nothing. Absolutely nothing. Social media is a brilliant tool that's really connected humanity, but this is obviously like we see the downsides of social media. That it gives everybody a platform to say shit, and well, I guess everyone should have a platform to say shit. I mean, you know, we're left with a whole bunch of cringe. But I guess this is considered making lemonade out of lemons, right? The cringe takes exist regardless of if we exist or not. So let's take them and have some fun. That's what we're doing. This is someone who I would not even have on the show. Like, I don't even know what to do with someone like this. What do you do with someone like this? Okay. And before you were here, why aren't you guys cancel the Brits for colonize your land? Same thing with the Ottomans, even if we weren't here after. So I think that what this guy's trying to say is, why are you mad at us but not the British and not the Ottomans? But that's just not actually grounded in reality. I mean, there was the Arab Revolt in the 30s, which was Palestinians revolting against the British. And then there was the peasant revolt, I think it was in the 1830s, which was a Palestinian revolt against the Ottomans. I mean, it's true that a large part of Palestinian national identities solidified as a response to Zionism. That's true. But the aspirations of the Levantine Arabs, right, living here, before they identified as Palestinians, let's call them Levantine Arabs, right? And I have no problem retroactively calling them Palestinians, but for the sake of the argument, in around the 1800s, when the concept of the nation state started becoming more and more popular around the world, and the Ottomans went through a process called the Tanzimat, which also strengthened Palestinian nationalism, Palestinians started to want a state of their own. They started seeing it as a concept. Oh, people have their own independent nations. Right as they saw an opportunity for this, to finally be free, that's when we started showing up and saying, hey, we want to create a state here. And yeah, the rest was history, as they say. But little history lesson. Oh, I need to bring up this comment. This is pretty funny. I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. I'll try. Sasuke de Uchiha. Maybe you could tell me how to pronounce it. But Ottomanese are descendants of Ottomans in Chinese, I guess. Yeah, that's funny because he did write Ottomanese. Pretty funny. Okay. This is one from Muhammad El-Kurd. The resistance of the Second Intifada for Zionists to fearfully giving them a dose of their own poison. Allegedly, an estimate of 300K settlers left back to where the fuck they came from during that period. So I want to address this. It seems like Muhammad El-Kurd is very highly revered amongst Palestinians and amongst Palestinian supporters. And I think often Palestinians feel like they're on the losing side and will take any help they can get. Actually, I don't even want to say this is true about Palestinians. I think Israelis do the same. The fact that we'll like ally ourselves with like evangelicals who they only support Israel because they think that all Jews need to return to Israel and then Jesus Christ will return, something like that, right? But we're still allies with them because why not? Let's get help from them. So I think that people are willing to give El-Kurd a free pass because they view him as an important voice for Palestinians. And it seems like when I criticized him, a lot of people were upset. Either they didn't hear the criticism I gave, or they explain that he's been oppressed his whole life, so of course he's going to call for ethnic cleansing, or of course he's going to be extreme. And I actually accept that position. I think that we need to be understanding towards hateful people. I think if you understand a Palestinian experience, you can understand why they hate Israelis and even Jews. And if you understand an Israeli's experience, you can understand why they're anti-Palestinian or anti-Muslim. ultimately we're just products of our environment. Sure, not just environment, also biology, but biology we don't have any control over. Environment also we're born into. So the difference between myself and a terrorist is that I was born in my shoes and they were born in theirs. And this is one of the truths that I most strongly believe. So I definitely understand being sympathetic towards people who, due to their experience, have become extreme. But there's a difference between being sympathetic and understanding and then accepting and normalizing, right? These are not the same. So I accept that Muhammad al-Kurd, because of his experience, hates Israelis and even has called for our ethnic cleansing. Like, I understand where that comes from. But that doesn't mean that he should be front and center, right? And I think most people would agree with this to an extent. The question is just, where do you draw the line? If Muhammad al-Kurd was using his platform to say kill all the Jews, I imagine most people would say that's a line he shouldn't cross. So I'm just deciding to draw the line somewhere else and saying, as much as I understand where he's coming from, I view his popularity really as Palestinians and pro-Palestine people really settling for someone who does not deserve the attention and the pride. And I'm actually someone who's pro-Palestine. Okay, he does not deserve the attention. The same way people like Honey deserve the attention from Israelis. These are not good activists. They're not helping the cause. They're not. Okay. And again, I've reached out to Muhammad to have him on the show. It doesn't seem like he's willing to speak to an Israeli. I can understand that, but it is what it is. So I'm going to continue to hold Muhammad accountable. Any influencer who has a large platform and is spreading toxic views on the conflict, I'm going to call out. And if that bothers you, I'm sorry. It is what it is. So let's talk about this take. Okay, so first of all, he's glorifying the Intifada, which I think is actually quite common Palestinian position. We view that as just glorifying civilians being killed. For us, it was buses exploding every day and children being killed, right? Children being blown into bits. That's what we remember the Intifada. So it's hard for us to see people glorifying that. For them, it's just an act of resistance. But let's actually get to the gist of what he's saying. So he views giving a dose of their own poison. He views that as something positive. The Intifada made Israelis more extreme. It made us less sympathetic towards the Palestinians. It made the conditions for Palestinians considerably worse. It resulted in a separation wall / fence being built, right? This is the result of the Intifada. So if you want to talk about it, let's be honest about what it net negative all around. It radicalized both their populations, it killed innocent civilians, and it made the conditions for Palestinians worse. These are not the Palestinian activists that I think we should be putting front and center. I'm sorry. And about the claim 300,000 settlers left back to where the fuck they came from. So he's not talking about settlers living in the West Bank going back to Israel. He's literally talking about Israelis living in Israel proper, leaving, right? Israel has immigration in, people leave. During Intifada, I don't know if this number is true, but it wouldn't surprise me if during those years a few 100,000 left. But this really gets the gist of it. He views all of us as settlers. He views me sitting in Syria as a settler. And he wants me to go wherever the fuck back I came from. Well, I happen to be a dual citizen, right? I do have someplace else to go. Most Israelis don't. Where the fuck they came from is here. This is where they were born. This is the only home they know, right? So his whole understanding of the other side of the conflict, sure, it's fueled by experience and trauma, without a doubt. I'm sympathetic towards that. But these are not the Palestinian voices that should be front and center. It simply shouldn't. We need to have standards for our activists. We should. Okay. Jake is giving us the stats. 70% of Israelis are born in Israel. There we go. So go back to where the fuck they came from. That would be Israel. Josh Mandel. I don't know who this guy is. I just by his thing, I'm gonna guess he's like by his photo, he's so Josh Mandel, Ohio. So I'm gonna guess he's a House of Representatives in Ohio. I'm assuming he's a Republican. Seems to be an evangelical Christian. Can someone look that up and tell me if that's true? So Josh Mandel, the Palestinians are a people from a fictional land who hate everything we stand for as Christians, Jews, and Americans. Who's his target audience for? Who's his target audience for this tweet? Such an instrument. So first of all, the Palestinians are people. They're just his group generalization, right? He's just like the Palestinians are people. He wants to talk about all of them. They're from a fictional land. What's the fictional land? Palestine. This is like a new take on the Palestine doesn't exist, because the claim normally is like Palestine as a independent nation state never existed, but Palestine certainly has existed for thousands of years, right? The land has been called Palestine on and off depending on when and who ruled it, but Palestine is not a new or made up term for the land. So there's nothing fictional about it. There's debate as to what it should be called and who should be sovereign, but this is just dumb. And who hate, right? So all Palestinians, the Palestinian people in general, right? Big group generalization, they hate everything we stand for as Christians, Jews, and Americans. Interesting. So does this include the Christian Palestinians? If these are the U.S. representatives, okay, someone. Okay, thanks, George. Joshua Aaron Mandel is an American politician who served as the 40th Treasurer of Ohio from 2011 to 2019, a member of the Republican Party. He previously was the Ohio State. It got cut off. Ohio State something. Member of House of Representatives. Is that how we continue? Anyways, this is just garbage. Like, dude, step away from Twitter and step away from the conflict. We don't need your involvement. We don't want your input. Okay, we're better off without you. You deal with American politics. There's plenty of issues going on in America. If anything, I'd say America is a failing nation at this point. Okay, deal with that, bro. We don't need you here. Okay. Let's see. Any comments worth? Mr. Hagen, Tal, good to see you here. I find it sad that these tweets even exist. So Halima's asking. Halima says, I don't follow El-Kurd socials, but I can gather what his general rhetoric is. Does anybody have receipts of tweet stories calling for ethnic cleansing of Jews? So I'm happy you asked. Yeah, there's a few tweets. Hold on. Do I have them somewhere here? I had them in my notes. There were a few problematic tweets. Even just the ones on the Nakba, I think are problematic, but not on the Nakba, sorry, on the Intifada. Where is it? I'll need to find it. It's somewhere in my notes. I'm going to paraphrase, but the tweet was something along the lines of colonizers, amongst other things, should be removed from the land. Okay. Unless, I very much try to be charitable in my interpretation of people, but what do you mean by that? And even the way he says they return to wherever the fuck they came from, like, he very clearly does not accept it's not just that he doesn't accept Israel's existence, right? It seems like he doesn't accept Jews living here, right? He views us all as settlers, all as colonizers. And he said colonizers should be removed. And if you want the actual tweet, send me a message. I need to find them in my notes, but I do have them written down somewhere. Okay. Okay, I got to stretch for this one. More to my point, colonizers cannot claim trauma from a genocide they're engaging in. I have trauma from the IP conflict as an Israeli. No, you are a settler with disproportionate power who exercises that automatically. So you could tell by this language that they're very much of like the woke social justice movement. You could tell, right? There's like a woke speak. You just know it from reading it. But the lack of empathy in this tweet and the collective blame we see. So let's try to break this down. Colonizers cannot claim trauma from a genocide they're engaging. Again, wrong use of the word genocide. But let's accept it for what it is. So let's say Israel is the oppressive force. And to the Palestinians, they without a doubt are. There's no denying that. The Palestinian people are oppressed by the IDF. Okay? Again, many people would deny this. The way I see it, without a doubt. Someone's born in Israel. It's the only home they've ever known. They might not support all of Israel's policies, might not support all of Israel's conduct. Maybe they vote for the most left-wing party. It doesn't really matter who they vote for, actually. They're not by default responsible for the actions of their government. And let's say this person has children and their child ends up being murdered in a bus bombing or in a stabbing attack or in a car ramming. Imagine saying to them, you don't have trauma because you're a colonizer. First of all, you might need to be a sociopath to actually believe this. Or you just have very little understanding of how the world works. Individuals are not their governments. Individuals benefiting from systemic power does not mean they cannot suffer, or does not mean they're not allowed to have legitimate concerns. This person, I think, lives in the United States. Technically, they're benefiting from the U.S. extracting resources from the third world. Does that mean their trauma is irrelevant? I highly doubt they would agree with that statement, but that's the logic they're using. Cringe. I'm not going to say who this person is, but I have invited them on the show, and I'd love to debate them on this. Let's see if they'll agree. I mean, she just changed Muna El Kurd to Turb. We see what you did. Okay, cool. Clever. I mean, it's cringe. It's just somebody who wants likes and comments. They think it's funny, you know. Social media incentivizes lame content. If she were to now write a nuanced explanation for her criticism of the El Kurds, it wouldn't get nearly as many views, right? So there's an incentivization to do clickbait, cringe takes, speaking to your echo chamber, right? This is all how social media is modeled. I don't quite know how to fix this, but it is a fundamental flaw in social media. And perhaps this isn't only exclusive to social media. I would say probably we could see something similar in democratic systems. Which democratic leader is going to be the most effective? The one who's giving like a nuanced breakdown of all their policy, or someone who has like very appealing platitudes? Right? So it's like, in order to get elected, you can't be nuanced. You can't give a real breakdown. You just need to appeal to people's emotions. It's a problem. How do we overcome that? Not sure. But I think we should try, because this points to one of the major flaws, not only in social media, but also in democracy. Next. This was actually sent to me by Instagram friend Farah. Shout out to Farah. Thank you for this. So this we've seen going around. Hamas attacks Israel, Hamas attacks Israel, Hamas attacks Israel, Israel defends itself, and then Israel attacked Gaza today on the news. And this was shared by Yair Netanyahu. It was actually an acquaintance of mine. He hasn't agreed to come on the show, but we go way back. So, first of all, I mean, just the optics of it showing that it's like Hamas will attack 3 times and Israel won't do anything. That's not true. Generally, if Hamas shoots 1 rocket, we'll respond 1 airstrike. But we also sometimes Israel sometimes breaks ceasefires and attacks first. Sometimes Israel has an opportunity to assassinate like a high-profile operative, and they'll attack. So it's just simply not true that they're always the ones attacking first. Now, this is actually something that's interesting. On the last Cringe review we did, I made the claim that the mainstream media is by and large pro-Palestine. And a few people actually pushed back and said that's simply not the case. And someone's saying I'm blurry. Oh, maybe it's internet issues. Am I blurry, guys? Well, let me know, chat. Anyways, my perception of the media has always been that it's pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. But that might be a result of my bias. Also, when, obviously I'm being Jewish, I have more Jewish friends on Facebook and social media and all that. When there's clear bias, anti-Israel bias, it's going to be shared, and I'm going to see it a lot. It gave me the perception that the media is anti-Israel. But after I made that claim, a lot of Palestinians or people who are more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, they reached out to me and showing examples of how the media is clearly pro-Israel. So I'm actually on the fence about this. I'm not. Fuck. Okay, hold on, guys. I'm hearing my voice is delayed. This is not the user experience I'm looking for. Hold on, I'm doing a speed test. I might switch connections to something else. By the way, I guess now's the time to. Your picture is clear, just you blurry. How does that work? Maybe I just have a blurry face. Maybe I just look blurry. So a little announcement. I just closed a deal with the studio called No Filters. It's run by Tzvika Hadad. He's a pretty well-known Israeli comedian. It's kind of what he's doing there is a Netflix for Israeli content. And he built this awesome studio, and he's letting content creators use the studio, and he gets to take their content and put it on his show. So we are going to we're going to start shooting there. So we're going to start having like super high powered internet, super high quality cameras, great mics. So our production quality, I believe starting next week, is going to be taken to a whole another level. Adam Albelia, Adar, something is wrong with your camera's quality. You sound ignorant. What? I don't get it. I guess if my camera's making me sound ignorant, then that's okay. Then it's not me. Thank you guys. Thank you for the congrats. Yep, it's pretty exciting. Let's see the speed test. No, I have 23 megabyte upload speed. That's perfectly fine for us. I'm not sure what's going on, but the show goes on. What do you guys think of this is one of my favorite shirts. It's like I guess you can't see in the light. It's like a nice purple. Only wear it on special occasions. The meme review is special occasion. All right, we're going to continue. So yeah, about the media bias, I'd actually be happy to do a deeper dive into this. Tal Hagen, maybe if you're still here, you're very much into media bias and stuff like that. Maybe we could talk about doing that together. So let's talk about it. If anybody else wants to contribute, let me know. Most of the guests on the show are people who discovered the show through YouTube and reached out and they came on the show. Like we have or Khalamish here. He's going to be on the show at some point soon. So we got a nice crew. Tal has been on the show multiple times. So yeah. Again, if anybody has input and they want to be on the show for an episode, they want to get involved in our media analysis episode, reach out and let me know. Here's asking him if I'm a football fan, American football or European football. I'll answer both. So I like all sports, but I don't religiously follow any of them anymore. Growing up, I was a pretty big American football fan. I used to watch every Sunday. I kind of grew out of that phase because I just couldn't find any good reason to root for one team over another. It's like I kind of like grew out of nationalism as well. It's kind of like an evolution. I'm like, wait, why do I support the Jets? Why do I care if they win or not? So I kind of took some of the fun out. But I play fantasy football, so I actually I can win money if certain players do well. So it does make me still interested in the season. And the only sport that I actually really follow, and I'm kind of ashamed to say this, I'm like a closeted supporter, is MMA. I'm very into it, which doesn't seem like me because this is all about peace. But I guess we all have a duality, right? Like we all have a light side and a dark side. So the way I channel my darkness is by watching MMA, mixed martial arts, which is, brutal for some, but I very much enjoy it and follow the storylines of the fighters and all that. I don't post about it. I don't talk about it because ultimately I think that fighting is bad, and I think that a sport like MMA actually normalizes violence. So like I'm kind of against it. I'm against it, but I still watch it. So I'm conflicted. It's a form of hypocrisy, you could say, and I acknowledge that. Yes, only MMA or pro wrestling. No, not pro wrestling. That's garbage. If it's not real, like why that's just scripted, I guess it's a form, like pro wrestling is a form of, it's like a dance of sorts. It's a form of athleticism, but it's scripted, so it's not like, all right, now we're getting MMA questions. Guys, look, we'll finish the cringe reviews and then we could dedicate a few minutes to it, but this is definitely not the viewer's interest. And it's not something that I consider a positive topic, so I'm not going to do so much on it. I'll answer a few questions about MMA and stuff like that. But yeah, Foodland, you asked who's your favorite. I don't have one favorite, but I think GSP is one of the GOATs. So yeah, I think he's great. He's also a great representative of the sport because he's genuinely a good person. Next. No, that's not relevant. I don't know. I don't really want to break this one down. It's a lot of nuances required. I guess let's get to this. The men who were killed. This is about the Palestinians who were killed in violence this week in the West Bank. The men who were killed were spun in Israeli and U.S. news outlets as being a terrorist network. It is especially brutal to watch them dehumanized in life by the military and in death by the media. These are the narratives we must resist at all costs. So, I mean, they were members of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Hamas came out and said that. In JVP's defense, they could be like, they're not terrorists, they're freedom fighters, right? They could still double down on their claim and say they weren't inaccurate, right? So many people are calling them out, saying they're not terrorists, but they are. But JVP doesn't view them as terrorists; they just view them as freedom fighters, and freedom fighters shouldn't be dehumanized; they should be praised. So that's like JVP's logic. I mean, I get it. I don't. I don't think it's the cringiest, but you know. Okay, that's actually that's all. That's all we have for today. If somebody wants to send me more cringe takes, we could review a few more. I'd be happy to answer questions. Let's get some super chats going. We've been light on the super chats. I always appreciate them. Hopefully, they will one day allow me to do this full time. I do enjoy my work in blockchain, but this very much is my passion. And if I could be a full-time live streamer and activist, then I would certainly do that. But it's gonna require a much larger community, more support on Patreon, and so I do want to take this opportunity and thank anybody who supports on Patreon, for those who occasionally give PayPal donations, to those who give super chats. All very much appreciated. I can't express enough. And even those who haven't given financially, like even just showing up, being here, being part of the conversation, sharing this with friends, it's all very much appreciated. I think we all have a shared goal in mind, right? We're tired of fighting with one another. We don't want to continue to be killing one another for another 100 years. Something needs to be done. Does this channel have the ability to solve the conflict on its own? No, probably not. But if everyone takes a role and does their small part, this channel can change thousands, one day hundreds of thousands of minds. That creates a ripple effect. Every individual has the ability to change some minds. So this is really my take on activism. One, to change a few to change many, many to change the world. Just recognize your ability to impact change and do what you can. And we're going to just continue doing this. We're going to continue to grow. And yeah, again, thank you. Cool. Learn, think, 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see, do we have any questions? So, as some MMA comments, people are saying Palestinians in Israel should settlement in MMA. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we should get as little violence as possible. But I know you're saying this in jest. There is a pretty well-known Palestinian fighter, and there's some up-and-coming Israeli ones, actually, believe it or not. Nia Rofe, thank you so much for the 6 shekels. Who's worse, Ben Gvir or Iman Uda? Remind me who Iman Uda is again. Hold on. No, I'm not. Who's Iman Uda? Look, Ben Gvir is pretty shitty. Like, antagonistic, provocative, you know, very much plays to his quite extreme base. Not somebody who we should be proud of as Israelis. Iran Pierre 5. You know, I always confuse the euro symbol and the pound symbol. That's a euro. Okay. Iran Pierre, thanks. I'm pretty sure it's a euro. Thanks so much for the €5. Hope the studio will help. Maybe you should get some funding to kickstart this and do full-time for real. Yeah, I mean, so first of all, the studio will definitely help. It's going to take our production quality to a whole nother level. It's also going to help with distribution to more Israelis. So that's very much exciting. The problem with getting funding to do this full-time is, I mean, for me to be able to do this full-time for, let's say it would take 2 or so years until the channel makes enough that I'd be able to live off it, and eventually hire people too, right? We want a big team of people working, and being part of this. Who's going to now pay a salary for 2 years, right? I think it's a little bit too much to ask. I mean, if they really believe in it and they want to fund for 2 years and get a percentage of get equity in what we do, yeah, I mean, definitely something that can be discussed. If any investors, reach out, let's have that conversation. I'm definitely open. Floodland99, thank you so much for the $5. Floodland goes, enjoyed the discussion. Thank you. I'm happy you're here with us. Oh, look who we have here, Han Ryu. Good to see you here. Han is a good friend of mine from South Korea. We know each other from the blockchain space, but we were in Burning Man together. We were in South Korea together. We were in San Francisco together, Washington, D.C. together. We have a history. Great guy. If anybody ever goes to South Korea, that's the guy to hit up. Han, can I tell them what you're interested in as like a South Korean, like, or is that a secret? Let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to tell them more about not the blockchain stuff, the stuff we discussed a little bit in at Burning Man. Ayman Oda. Yeah, I don't think that's how it's spelled in English. I don't know. I don't have much. I don't. I know they. No, I don't have much of an opinion. I need to know more about them. Oh, I'm just hearing George sent me some cringe stuff on IG. Let's see it. Where'd you send it to, George? I'm not getting it. Let me refresh. Huh. George, where? Is anybody coming from the U.S. to Israel anytime soon? I want an iPhone 13. Would be happy if someone could grab me one. Hold on. Yeah, George, I'm not. Did you send it to mine or Sulha? Maybe it's the Sulha. Let me know where you sent it because I'm actually not seeing anything right now. Iran is asking, is there import duty? I mean, yeah, but not if you just bring one phone. You just bring an iPhone. George Haxon. Did you send it from George Haxon? Hidden request, nothing. Near, thanks for the six shekels. Speaking MMA, were you a fan of Ido Pariente? I don't. Never heard of them. Never heard of him. Not sure who that is. There is a very strong up and comer guy named Aviv Gozali. I think he's like 7-0. Fights in Bellator promotion. Jake is asking, Adar, when I come to Israel, where should I go first? Depends how long you're staying for, but I would tell you to spend a few days in Tel Aviv, a few in Jerusalem, then go down from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea for the day. Maybe go very early so you could do like En Gedi and then the Dead Sea, and then do a few days in the north. The North Israel, in my opinion, is the most beautiful part of the country. It's absolutely beautiful there. Some prefer the desert down south, but just preference. But yeah, so definitely those are some interesting things to check out. Maybe chat wants to share more places to visit. Superman, good to see you here. I haven't seen you in a while. Superman goes, Israel is so tiny, a lot packed in a small place. Yeah, that's true. It's so tiny, but there's so much to see. Like if you're here for 2 weeks, you still can't get to nearly all of it. Like it's small, but very, very dense and compact. Lots in that little guy. Does anybody want to hop on the stream? We're going for an hour. We'll do like another 30 minutes. If someone wants to hop on the stream, we could bring on some guests, more questions, maybe a few more super chats. Elias, you're asking what the temperature is here. Let me tell you. -26 Celsius. But it's like nighttime right now. So 26 at night. Not bad, huh? I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts. And honestly, I'm a little hot. So interesting. We have one person viewing on 2 people on Facebook, 1 person on Twitch, and then the rest here on YouTube. Just so we see the where the community really is. Thank you, Isani. I appreciate the support very much. Any other questions? Comments? Superman, I see. Good question. Do you have a lot of hope when Lapid takes over that peace talks will happen? So I would correct that and say, if Lapid takes over, the government will need to last another 1.5 years for that to happen. It might. I mean, so far so good, but it's not clear that Lapid will be prime minister if the government will last until then. I think that Lapid is probably going to do more than Bennett. I think Lapid, I don't know if the official position is to support a Palestinian state. I actually think only Meretz, the most left-wing party, has that as an official position. But he's definitely more, let's call him peace-oriented than Bennett is. But to Bennett's credit, you know, the current government is doing some positive things. They started an initiative to reduce the conflict. That's the term they're using, and this is actually an NGO. We should actually bring them on. Reducing the conflict. What are they called? Reducing the initiative, I think they're called. So they're very pragmatic, right? They're saying, look, we don't have an easy solution. We don't know how to solve a conflict immediately, but there are things we can do today to reduce the conflict, to improve the lives of Palestinians, and there's no reason why we shouldn't do them. And this is so true. Often defenders of Israel will take the stance, our security apparatus is purely defense, nothing more. It's just defense. Why is it that Bennett can now come in, who's considerably to the right of Bibi? Why is it that he can come in and say, no, the status quo isn't acceptable. We're going to do a lot more to change it, right? So all the pro-Israel activists who have just been saying there's nothing we could do. No, there's been a lot we can do, and activists have actually been talking about the things that could be done, but it's just very easy to ignore and blindly defend Israel and say that everything Israel does is perfect and there's nothing else that can be done. And I do understand the inclination, right? When you feel like the whole world is against you, when you feel like there's like a disproportionate amount of attention that you get, you don't want to contribute to the condemnation of your country when there's already so much of that condemnation. But when all you are doing is defending Israel, you don't have any legitimacy because you're just seen as a shill, right? You're not seen as an objective actor who's willing to criticize. But if you can criticize Israel, your defense then carries a lot more weight. So anybody who cares to defend Israel, criticize her. The more you criticize her, the more legitimacy you have in her defense. Simple as that. Or it gives us a little clarification. Or is like our Israel-Palestine encyclopedia. He is for a Palestinian state officially, but he also noted that he wanted to do unilaterally move if there is no agreement. Interesting. Okay. Learn Think says, I will chat someday. I'm still too scared. Whenever you're ready, we'd love to have you on. Oh, Iran is also giving Lapid committed today to two-state solution in Bahrain. Cool. It looks like our relations with the Gulf states could potentially help us get back to the negotiating table, right? Because for them, it wasn't like none of the population of Bahrain or UAE or Morocco, they don't support normalization with Israel, but their governments did, right? Their government is looking for their own interest. They want the economic ties that come with it, the security ties that come with it. These aren't democracies, so what do they care if they piss a few people off? But it seems like that they're not going to just accept normalization with us without any expectations. It seems like they are going to be committed to helping to solve a conflict, and I think that's cool. I think that could possibly, be positive. Let's see, George Haxon, you're saying you sent it. Why is it not going through? Very weird on Instagram. What's your name on What's your name on Instagram? Maybe. Is your name George Haxon? Because I'm getting a message from somebody with a similar name. Okay. I think, yeah, I think I see it. You just sent me, hi, I can get you one if you need. Was that you? Yeah, I was under, okay, that was confusion. Let me load these. Iran, this is an interesting development. Thanks for sharing. A conference of some dozen high-ranking Iraqis called for peace with Israel. Then their government bullied them into standing down, unfortunately. Well, I guess it's a step in the right direction. Oh, George, you can get me an iPhone 13. When are you coming to Israel? I'll PayPal you. Elias is asking how many languages I speak. Elias, I speak Hebrew and English. English, I speak. I'm fluent in Hebrew, but I don't navigate it as easily as I navigate English. So day-to-day conversation, slang, all that, Hebrew, no problem. If I were to need to do a live stream in Hebrew or talk politics in Hebrew, I'd struggle just because I don't have much practice in it. But this is a goal of mine. Once we get a little more well-established, I do want to launch Sulha in Hebrew and in Arabic. And one of my goals is not only to launch Sulha in Hebrew, but also to be able to moderate and have these discussions in Hebrew as well. And it's probably, because the base is there, it's probably a matter of a few months of practicing, and I'll be able to do this in Hebrew as well. Okay, George, I got it. But you're sending me stories. So I'm not seeing, you sent me two things. One is a story. The other is, they're both videos. I don't know. I don't know if I could review these now. I'm not sure you guys will be able to hear the audio. Let's try. Wait, George, if I share my screen, people are going to see your Instagram account. Are you okay with that? let me know before I do it. It will. People would be able to see your IG, so let me know. So Danny asks, what exactly is Bennett doing to reduce the conflict? 5 Palestinians were brutally murdered in 1 week. Settler terrorism is at an all-time high. Yeah, I mean, those things are true. I mean, brutally murdered is very specific language in order to create an emotional reaction. But, I'll give it to you. There's definitely tension now. Settler violence also is at an all-time high. It needs to be addressed. But he did commit to an initiative which reduces the conflict and let's call it easing the occupation, making life in the West Bank way more tolerable. I think it involves allowing way more Palestinians to come work in Israel. Maybe someone can send me a link on the initiative and see what he's committed to. Like, Danny, you are aware that the 5 Palestinians killed, they were Hamas and Islamic Jihad operatives, right? Like, are you still okay with brutally murdered? I mean, maybe. It's like, it's not that it wasn't just 5 children who were on their way to school. I would say the correct terminology, and this is a criticism I have of Israelis as well, if a Palestinian attacks a soldier, we'll still call them a terrorist. But that's not terrorism. That's literally combat, okay? So I have the same criticism for Israel. If Israel kills operatives, armed operatives, that's not murder. They were killed, okay? They were killed. And the same goes for Palestinians killing soldiers. It's killing them. It's not murdering them. It's in the context of an armed conflict. And I think Israel is, it's extremely normalized. It doesn't matter any attack against Israelis. You could literally, Palestinian could attack a soldier in the West Bank, right? They're considered a terrorist. So they're essentially saying any resistance is just going to be any violent resistance, even if it's against our military, that's terrorism. It's, I don't know if disingenuous is the right word, but it's just like it's inaccurate framing, and it's really used to demonize any form of resistance. Salam Shalom is saying, what about the lynchings in the second Intifada? In reference to what? I'm not quite sure I understand. I get what you're saying. Just go to the story account. Hold on. Let's see. Trying to. So this is the Kamala Harris video. Yeah, I haven't even seen this yet. So let's Salam, I see what you're saying. Who the lynchings in the Intifada? What? No, those were. I don't quite recall. They weren't in uniform, or were they in uniform? I need to remember the details. I mean, look, that was brutal. That was brutal. That's still definitely, scarred in our memory. I don't remember if they were on uniform, if they were on duty, if they were reservists. I need more information to be able to give an assessment on that. But it's perhaps gray area for how it should be defined. But I would need some more information. All right, let's watch the Kamala Harris video. Let me know if you can hear this.
an astronomical number standing with Palestine, but then just a few days ago there were funds allocated to continue backing Israel, which hurts my heart because it's an ethnic genocide and the displacement of people, the same that happened in America, and I'm sure you're aware of this. And I bring this up also because of the issue of how Americans are struggling because of lack of health care, public health care, lack of affordable housing, and all this money ends up going to in funding Israel and backing Saudi Arabia and whatnot. And I think that the people have spoken very often in what they do need, and I feel like there's a lack of listening, and I just feel like I need to bring this up because it affects my life and people I really care about's lives, and this is just something I have to bring up.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. And again, this is about the fact that your voice, your perspective, your experience, your truth should not be suppressed.
Protests and
Okay, guys. Anybody who gave Kamala Harris shit for this, like, no, I'm gonna need to come to her defense. I don't support her, not as a politician. Again, I don't have like anything super against her. I just didn't find her to be such like an appealing person. I heard about her history as like a prosecutor and all that. She seems very fake, disingenuous. I don't see the appeal in her, and most others didn't as well. She got very few votes, but that's besides the point. Kamala Harris does not deserve shit for this. Okay, so the claim against her, and let's read what they're saying. I fucking hate this. I hate these claims. Harris nodding away as student accuses Israel of ethnic genocide. Then she says, "Your truth cannot be suppressed." Okay. Kamala's literally listening to somebody. I know this from actually interviewing people. Kamala's literally listening to a student talk about something that's important to her. She said many things. Okay. You expect Kamala to now say, well, technically it's not genocide. That's literally not the point of the conversation. That's not the point at all. She's talking about, she's upset that Israel gets funding from the United States. Regardless, is it genocide? Is it oppression? Is it an occupation? So this person expects Kamala to hear ethnic genocide. Oh, she said a word that I disagree with. I'm not going to nod. I'm going to deny what she's saying and shut her down. Like, no, like, come the fuck on. Just because you're super triggered by the term genocide doesn't mean everybody else needs to be. Doesn't mean she needs to stop the conversation halfway and call her out. Okay. Sometimes I'm interviewing someone. They'll speak for a few minutes. They might say 3 things I disagree with. I'm not then gonna challenge them on all 3 things. It makes conversations unbearable, hard to follow, and unproductive. So. George, if you sent me this thinking that I don't know who you agree with, Kamala or the person posting, but I'm sorry if my reaction was different than what you expected. But no, Kamala does not deserve any flack at all for this. Yeah, Iran says she's just a politician. She is. You know, it's whatever. Like, this is literally looking for a reason to be upset. And as I mentioned, it's not genocide. You know, no reason to get so triggered over it. Like, that literally wasn't the main point of her conversation. Kamala's being a politician. She's being polite. Cool. Honestly, I can't imagine any politician doing something differently. Like, Trump literally would have responded the same way. Okay. Yeah, Iran makes the your truth was cringe, but she's fine. The hate mob is insane. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's a little cringe, but just the amount of backlash. I was actually shocked to see how mild of a reaction, like how mild the video was compared to the reaction I saw on social media. Honestly, social media is so toxic. The fact that they got upset over this, God. Oh man. Yeah, Casimir. So, by the way, like, Casimir is by no means a Democrat, and I'm just saying there are far worse things going on in the world than this trivial nothing burger. I agree. People are looking for a reason to get upset. No, George, I'm not criticizing this video. I'm happy you gave it to me. This is good content. I just the reason I made that comment is if you were expecting me to attack Kamala, I'm sorry that was not my reaction. Like maybe you're looking for a different reaction, but I think it's a good video. I appreciate it. I'm happy to go to the other one. Hold on, let me stop this share screen real quick, just so to keep your privacy. Let's see the other one. Okay. This is a story. I had a conversation. Wait, this is actually done by a friend of mine. Okay. Thank you, Jake. Good to see you here. See you next week. So, George, you're saying you're more concerned about the student. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. So I couldn't hear everything she said. The audio is not great, but the term genocide has been widely accepted. You need to really change the definition of genocide to consider what Israel is doing genocide. Like, greatly change it. And it's a shame that rhetoric has been normalized. It's not conducive for good dialogue between Jews and Palestinians. That's for sure. It might be effective though for Palestinians to gain sympathy. Like if you're looking just in terms of efficacy, it's possible that like they're saying, I don't care to be truthful. I just want to be effective. I don't know. Hard to argue with that. Like then we're like, okay, well you're lying. It's like I don't care. I'm changing people's minds, so I'm going to keep doing it. Like it's a shame that that's the case, but I have a feeling that's what's going on here. And actually, let me be clear. It's not all malicious. Most people who use the term genocide think that's genuinely what it is. They don't understand that the Palestinian population has quadrupled since the establishment of the state of Israel, right? That's a failed genocide, if anything. Like, how does Israel have the military capability, certainly to commit a genocide, yet the Palestinian population has quadrupled, right? So it's just not grounded in reality. Again, there's a lot of claims against Israel. Israel's done a lot wrong. Israel does a lot wrong. I'd prefer to ground the criticism in truth. I think you're going to have more legitimacy as an activist if you're going to be truthful. But as we see, this rhetoric's normalized and these people get very far lying. So, yeah, so I hope that gives you some more clarity, George. And then the other claim she's making, she doesn't want the U.S. to support Israel. So I'm cool with that. I think Israel needs to get off of their dependency of U.S. support. Like to me, I found it very. It's funny. It's like the Twitter accounts that have like the line of Judah. Like they're like strong Judeans, the ones who take all pride in being like strong Jews. They were the ones who were super triggered that the U.S. wouldn't, or that a few Democrats didn't want to fund the Iron Dome. So on one hand, they're saying we are proud Judeans, but we expect the U.S. to fund us, right? It's like, come on. So I think Israel should wean off of U.S. support. I think it'd be good for them. I think it'd be good for ultimately. For even how Americans perceive Israel, I think will be more positive if the support is slowly stopped. Yeah, those strong Judeans. אני עדיין בשידור, אבל כן. שיהיה לכם אחלה ערב. אתם רוצים להצטרף לשידור? כן? מאיפה אתם? מעכו? איפה זה ירכא? אוקיי. אתם יודעים שהשידורים שאני עושה דו-שיח בין ישראלים ופלסטינים. כן, אני רוצה עוד. כן. אני רוצה, כן, בעתיד. יפה. טוב שביקרתם, ותודה שהבנתם את מה שקורה פה. של אבא שלי. כן. אם אתם רוצים, אתם פה עוד שעה, אני יכול לראות לכם קצת היאכטה, אבל הוא לא מוציא את זה הרבה. זה $100 בשעה, רק הדלק. נדבר על זה. לא, תבוא, אתם באים לפה הרבה? כן, כן. בצהריים כזה, צהריים אחר הצהריים, כן? תקרא לי, תגיד אדר, אני אצא. כן, כן. יאללה. Yeah, those the guys that were making noise before came back. Yarka, that's el Sirako. All right, so I mean, Danny, like I wanna really address this in good faith. So genocide is not just through murder. There's cultural genocide and identity genocide. So the problem I have with those terminology, genocide has a very specific connotation, right? 90+% of people, when they hear when they hear the term genocide, they think mass murder. So it's again, it's not language that I think gives an accurate depiction of what's going on. People aren't saying Israel's committing cultural genocide. And even if they were to say that, people don't know what cultural genocide means. So again, it's a language that gives the wrong impression of what's actually going on. And the moral implications of an actual genocide and Israel's conduct are just vastly different. And again, most of the times, just Israel's being accused of genocide. And if you're saying genocide can be used to say mass murder or suppressing someone's identity, okay, well then what does the word genocide even mean, right? Like it's just so vastly different. So yeah, about that little interaction, a nice crew of Israeli Arabs. Actually, so that's another tricky thing. Do they identify as Israeli Arabs or Palestinian citizens of Israel? I'm not sure. And I actually don't know how to refer to that population because some identify differently. But that was a nice natural interaction. They want to, I don't know if you heard what they were saying, but they want to come back to the boat. They want to come on the boat and do a little ride. They're offered to pay. Yeah, and sorry, Nir goes, we can tell you don't have kids. You don't know where Yalka is. Why? What's the reference to that? When you have kids, you know where that is? So, Danny, I have a serious question. If erasing us off the map is a form of genocide, so you're saying if when we show in our schools that the entire land is Israel, which I object to that, if that's genocide, are Palestinians committing genocide when they show that the entire land is Palestine? Is erasing us off the map genocide towards us? Because is this really how loosely we want to use the term genocide? And if we do, fine, but then genocide doesn't really mean anything anymore. And Danny, you know, I'd love to have you on the show to talk about this. So, and let's talk about like cultural genocide more. I would say actually, I would say that the Palestinian narrative and Palestinian culture, the Palestinians in general have really become globally known. This isn't because of Israel. Israel doesn't deserve credit to this, but I don't think that there's a cultural genocide going on. Like, what is Israel doing in the West Bank to kill Palestinian culture? Like, what's one thing that they do to actually kill Palestinian culture? You could raise a Palestinian flag. Palestinian musicians can play freely. Honestly, if anything, the PA has cracked down on like some underground parties. If anything, the PA has cracked down more on Palestinian culture than Israel. Maybe I'm uninformed about this, but somebody let me know, what is Israel doing today to kill Palestinian culture? Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. Iran goes, great accent. Yeah, I have a funny accent when I speak Hebrew. It's never going away. I've been speaking Hebrew since I was a little kid. I've always had that accent. I don't try to change it too. It makes me unique. Oh yeah, I was gonna open another before they came back. Yeah, I was gonna open another thing that George sent me. Okay. So this was a story by Eliran Ben Yair that George wanted me to review. No, this is the Hebrew version. Where is it? Oh, maybe it was the Hebrew version. Oh, here it is. A new Palestinian computer game called Knights of Al-Aqsa Mosque was released in December via Steam server. It's a game where Palestinian prisoner must kill Israeli soldiers in order to liberate Palestine. The game was created by Nidal Najam, the son of a Fatah fighter, who claims that the game is not anti-Semitic. But watch the video and decide for yourself. The media worldwide is silent. The media in Israel is silent. The people are silent. If this game was Israeli, do you think everyone would still be so quiet? A Palestinian boy who plays all day in a game that teaches him to murder Israelis will walk in the streets. What do you think he will do forever? World of hypocrites. So, Eliran's a friend of mine. He's been on the show. I actually asked him about this because I don't agree with him on his assessment that it's anti-Semitic. I messaged him saying, what's anti-Semitic about it? He explained that it's something in the language they used to describe the game in Arabic, where they conflate the term Jews with Israelis and terrorists. I didn't quite understand. He said it's hard to explain. I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's fluent in Arabic. I'm not. But I mean, you can make this an objection to all video games about war, right? Is a video game where you're killing terrorists, is that Islamophobic? Is that anti-Islam? Right? Like, if it's a video game where you're killing Nazis, are you anti-German? I mean, you could even take this further, right? Like, why is killing military a tribute to how you view the collective, right? You could say, oh, well, then killing any male soldier, then you're anti-male. So I don't follow that logic. I don't view it as anti-Semitic. I could see why you're bothered by it, and I agree with the logic that if an Israeli put out a game where you kill Palestinians, there'd be worldwide condemnation, sure. But the claim that it's anti-Semitic, I think, and again, he did say it has something to do with the wording they use in Arabic, so I can't really speak to that. But but I've mentioned this many times. I'm concerned with how loosely we use the term anti-Semitism. It seems like just a term that's thrown around to shut down conversation instead of engage with people with what they're saying. All over social media, everything's anti-Semitic these days. People don't even, the word has lost legitimacy, kind of like racism. Like that. Good job, activists. No one takes anti-Semitism seriously because you're just calling everything anti-Semitic. Again, I'll give Eliran the benefit of the doubt that there was something in this video that was in Arabic that leads him to believe it's anti-Semitic, because that was his explanation. But I do object to how loosely we use the word. And look, and I will say this, that I do think that the video game, like he thinks that Palestinians playing the video game can increase the chance of them being terrorists. I mean, I don't know. If they're at home playing video games, maybe it's better than them being out on the streets, right? And if something's going to make them be a terrorist, it's probably not the video game. It's probably living under another nation's military rule. It's probably checkpoints and home searches. Like, this is more likely to lead to terrorism. Perhaps it's socioeconomic stress, right? Your family gets funding if you are a martyr. So there's many reasons to be a terrorism. I'm not sure a video game is going to lead to it. That being said, I could understand why any Israeli would be upset with a game like that, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand why it's upsetting. I just don't know if I would go ahead and call it anti-Semitic. Hold on, I did see a message a little farther back from somebody who identified as Israeli Arab. Hi, Alaram. I see you're here. Alaram is our awesome Druze community member. Alaram, you want to come on the program one time, talk about like the Druze community? I think that's something I'd like to discuss more. Oh, Nir gives a thing saying Yarka has a huge mall for kids stuff and baby stuff. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I don't know Yarka. Interesting. No, I do not. I do not have kids. No. And I might never have kids. I'm an uncle, 2 nieces and a nephew, and I love them, but kids are fucking annoying. Like, I don't want to offend anybody, but having children, you're giving up so much freedom. And I know once you have children, you can't imagine life without them. I'm not telling people not to have children. It's a personal decision, but I'm not ready to give up that amount of freedom. To be a good father, to be a good parent, it's like a real emotional investment. It's many hours a day. It's not sleeping at nights. And maybe when the kids get older, it becomes easier, right? You get a few rough years out of the way. And that's, my nieces and nephews are still very young. But like, even after a few hours of babysitting, I'm just so happy to get home and be alone. I very much value my alone time. And when you have children, you don't have that anymore. So it's not high on my list of things I feel like I need to do in life. Again, who knows? My grandpa's constantly telling me, Adar, when are you having children? Adar, when are you having children? And he has, this dude, my grandfather, has 45 great-grandchildren. Like, dude, leave me alone. Danny, I'll address this as well. As for settler violence, what's so hard for a democracy to arrest mountain hillbillies who commit acts of violence and terror? Reason they don't want to. I mean, I agree completely. I wouldn't call them mountain hillbillies, but yeah. Settler violence is absolutely unacceptable. And there's zero reason why, like, Israel needs to do a lot more to hold them accountable. When a Palestinian commits an act of terrorism, they're going to be arrested, almost always. Israel always finds them. When a Jew does something similar, nope, often not. So yeah, we need the same standard. Where's our Israeli Arab friend who wrote something? Oh, Elias T. Elias T goes, thanks as always for your work, Adar. As an Arab from Israel, I wonder if a move to the far right is in everybody's benefit at this point, as it seemed for the Mizrahi community during the 70s. Can you share some thoughts? Why would it be? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's in everybody's benefit, but I'll tell you one argument that I have heard from Palestinians actually, that Israel moving to the right is ultimately positive because they're going to eventually annex the West Bank. The land will remain whole, right? Most Palestinians don't want to partition the land. They want one state. So, the right strengthening kind of kills the two-state solution, which many Palestinians are cool with. They said, let them annex the entire land. We'll have one state, and then we'll have a civil rights movement and get equality under the law, and we'll have a binational state. And for Palestinians, that would be a major win, right? So that's one positive benefit for them moving to the right. But generally speaking, and again, this isn't by all means all right-wingers, but on the right, they're generally less sympathetic towards the Palestinian cause, less dedicated to the peace process, more militant, right? Again, this is just a generalization on average, not all of them, but that would probably be the result of Israel moving to the right. So I'm not sure how that would play out. I don't care if you're right or left, as long as if you're going to be dedicated towards a peaceful solution, like, cool, you could be anywhere on the political spectrum. I agree with this take, Casimir. The video game can be seen as militant propaganda, just like a game where Americans fight against Russians. They are both bad ideas that people should avoid buying. No regulation, meaning there shouldn't be regulation. I think I agree with that. Makes sense. Iran asks, how do Israelis react to your take on the situation? I understand it's a pretty anti-popular statement. Yeah, I mean, my opinions aren't popular. Not in Israel and not even in the Jewish diaspora, but most Israelis, I would say, find this work, and again, this is what they say to my face, right? I don't know what they think or what they'd say behind my back, but it seems like the majority actually find the work to be commendable. More extreme circles might not. They'll laugh at it as like just a waste of time, but a lot of them say, they use the word avodat kodesh. What would the translation of that be? Work? Holy work? I don't know, being secular, I don't consider it holy. I just think it's important, and, I get a lot of meaning from dedicating my life to something I find important. But they view the concept of connecting between Israelis and Palestinians as important and commendable. But the narrative, they're not familiar with the Palestinian narrative. So a lot of the things I describe, a lot of the aspects of the Palestinian narrative that I emphasize, many Israelis do find triggering, push back on, get defensive. And some will entirely accept it. They'll be like, that's true, but it's us or them, and we just need to keep fighting because they're never going to accept us here. Which the tricky thing with Israelis who tell me that is I can't even honestly tell them that they're wrong, because the majority of Palestinians do not accept any form of Israel's existence, right? So when Israelis say, I'm not going to do anything for peace because that's a non-starter. Israel ceasing to exist is a non-starter. I'm not gonna engage with that. I'm not going to give up my nation that gives me security. It's a non-starter, and for many Palestinians, Israel existing is a non-starter, right? So what do we do? I think Palestinians need to come to terms with the fact that Israel is going to remain. And look, I think there's some achievable goals, right? So if your goal is to end the occupation, right? Get the Israeli military out of the West Bank. That's achievable. If your goal is to improve the conditions of Palestinian citizens of Israel, that's achievable, right? The energy that activists have, the energy that the Palestinian cause has manifested, should be channeled into avenues that can be effective. So if all this energy were to be directed to improving the conditions of Palestinian citizens of Israel and working to end the military occupation of the West Bank, these are achievable. But when a significant portion of that energy goes to literally dismantling Israel, it's a waste of energy. Not only is it a waste of energy, but it's counterproductive because it radicalizes Israelis, and then Israelis use that as a reason as to why they're not going to get involved in the peace process. They say there's no one to talk to. There's no they're not willing to compromise. So why should I spend a minute of my time, a minute of my energy to speak to somebody who wants to destroy my country, right? So if the energy can be channeled into avenues that actually have a chance of being realized, then Palestinian activism is going to be far more effective. And I'd like to see this happen, but it seems like the trajectory of Palestinian activism is going in the other direction, and the calls for the dismantling of Israel are being strengthened and normalized. So that's unfortunate. By the way, to the Israeli Arab who commented before, if you want to come on the show, reach out to me. I really want to do more work between Israeli Jews and Arabs. I think that could be very important, and it's something that perhaps would have even more immediate impact than Israel-Palestine. So I'm really looking to building on that. Casimir goes, Adar, please keep mentioning right wing like they understand what it means. I think it could be a good topic. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I try to refrain from left-right paradigm unless asked about it or unless I can't find a better way to describe it. But I agree that a lot of our inability to understand other people and have good conversations with people with different political ideologies come down to just the left-right paradigm and how unspecific and how little it actually tells you about somebody's views, right? So like some people who are no longer in the comments, but we used to have some pretty nasty people who we eventually banned. They would constantly say that this is just a left-wing echo chamber, that I'm a far lefty, right? But those on the left have a fair amount of criticism towards me and consider some of my views to not be left at all. Right, again, so again, how you perceive someone depends on where you're standing. And my criticism of what I would call like woke social justice, I criticize them perhaps even more than I criticize what's known as the alt-right. So, you know, I definitely consider myself left of center and definitely a liberal, like a liberal worldview, how I look at social issues, the benefit of the doubt I give people, the understanding of how important environmental conditions are to human outcome, right? These are all things that are more left than they're right. But I'm also very big on personal responsibility, right? That's more of like a right-wing value. So, you know, it really depends what you're talking about. I mentioned the people that got banned. I think since we launched this channel around a year and a half ago, we have, I think, 15 to 20 people who are banned. I don't know if they're banned from commenting or from actually viewing the channel, but I'm thinking of like occasionally of just unbanning everybody because I very much think second chances are important. So maybe we'll, and you know, we just had Yom Kippur and the Jewish New Year. Maybe we'll Maybe we'll unban everybody, see what happens. We could reban if people start acting up again. I do think I do think that the chat has been much more peaceful ever since these people have been banned. But I very much believe in second and even third chances, so I'm happy. Leica goes, Mossad and Adar is just a personality clash. He's a good guy with a huge amount of knowledge. So Mossad is one of the people who got banned. So I don't fully agree with this framing, actually, Leica. First of all, I agree Mossad has a huge amount of knowledge, and he may be a good guy. I don't know him well enough. But he actually was on the channel twice. He came in, and we had great conversations. So I actually didn't have any problems with Mossad, but something happened. I don't know what triggered it, but something happened, and he just started engaging in personal attacks against me, against people in the chats. He kept saying, like, calling everybody a lefty. So I don't know if it's right to call this as a personality clash. I could get along with any personalities, but it's just more an issue of principles and guidelines. We're not going to allow somebody to engage in personal attacks. He did that over and over and over again, at least 5 times. So again, it's not a personality clash. Someone whose personality is against personal attacks, and someone who thinks it's okay. And I really would like to know where that change for Mossad happened. Because actually, I like the guy. I didn't want to ban him. We had good conversations. I appreciated his input. I'd be happy to have him on the channel again. But like there was some like trigger, and then he started acting really nasty. I'd be happy to work and speak to him, bring him on for a session and talk. Like I'm very open to it. But just if somebody's going to use this space to attack people, we're just not going to allow that. We just released a video clip where we had people come on and give community feedback. You could actually watch that. Mossad was on for like 10, 15 minutes giving feedback. It was a pretty good conversation. Iran goes, you should do a sulha with Mossad. Yeah, I'm definitely down. Again, I'm not going to allow him to come back and continue to engage in personal attacks. Like, doesn't matter what, I'm not gonna. But if he wants to come back and share his views and even come on the channel and share his views, and he won't engage in personal attacks, he's more than welcome, right? He is more than welcome. And Mossad, if you're watching this, maybe someone can show him this. Mossad, I'd be happy to have you come back to speak, to share your thoughts. I would say that the Israeli right is not even strongly represented enough on this channel. So we're looking for that increased representation. You can help give that. But we're not going to accept personal attacks, not of any kind. Thanks, Leica. Starhopper, actually, no, Starhopper did not get banned, but they disappeared. I don't know where they are. Haven't seen them in a few weeks. Chasing supercars goes, will the fall of the USA as a superpower lead to the fall of Israel? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect. I mean, if we look at like the trajectory of the world, it seems like we're moving from like a Eurocentric world to being an Asian-centric world. Just if you look at like did you guys know that 50% of the world's population lives in Asia? Isn't that crazy? Now, Asia also has the most amount of people moving from a lower socioeconomic class to moving into the consumer class. So the amount of like the strength of the economy that we're going to see in Asia over the next few decades, I think you're going to see the majority of the world economy move from America and Europe over to Asia. Unfortunate for like the Palestinian cause, who thinks that America's support of Israel is what allows Israel to exist. I mean, China is way worse on human rights than America, like way worse. So I don't know if that's what we should be banking on. And this is why I don't know how effective, like a lot of activism is forced on convincing the world to hate Israel. I think a more effective activism should be to convince Israelis that it's in their best interest, that they should care about solving conflict, and perhaps international pressure could help that happen. But again, I don't think that the international community alone is going to solve the conflict without Israelis consenting. And for Israelis to consent to change, that change can't put them in danger. So again, we need to give Israelis a pretty clear path forward for what a solution could look like, where they're not going to end up being dead or persecuted. And if that path can be shown, then Israelis are going to hop on board and very much be part of this process. So activists around the world, if we want Israelis to do something to be more involved in solving conflict, we need to show that there's a way for them to do that without it harming them, right? Why would somebody act against their own interest? Serious question, why? It's not a realistic expectation for people to do. Okay, 2 hours. I think we'll wrap it up. What do we have coming up this month? So as I mentioned, we have the new studio. Georgie sent another video. Let's see. But if you guys like these reviews, like not only the cringe take review, but also video reviews, let me know. I'd be happy to do more of these reviews. The past video reviews we've done have been pretty successful, so I'm definitely open to it. Let's see. I'm not going to watch it first, just so we can react together. I have a feeling this one's cringe, George. I just heard just the tone of the speaker. Oh man, the tone of the speaker gives me not the best feeling about this.
Israel hires really pretty girls on TikTok to come and dance and sexualize Zionism. So
not from the top, make it drop. That's some wet. That's some wet. I get a bucket and a mop. That's some wet. That's some wet. I'm talking wop, wop, wop. That's some wet. That's some wet.
Damn! Finally, I can afford an apartment in Dizengoff. Woo!
Did you guys know that Israel hires really pretty girls on TikTok to come and dance?
I mean, that's a funny video. Is her claim true? I have no idea. Israel pays pretty girls to dance on TikTok. Look, I mean, I need to see some receipts, right? Like you make a claim, you got to back it up. But I will say, I think it's possible. It seems like an effective strategy. So you need to think, if you're like in Israel's Hasbara department, right? PR department. You're like, how can we get people to view Israel favorably? Well, yeah, showing pretty women, might help. So, I wouldn't put it past Israel for doing that. But again, without proof, it's just a claim that we can't take seriously. Yeah, Origos, most of them do it for free, for sure. They do it for views, for sure, yeah. P-Ball, what is this claim? I was just saying, if USA fell, then American Jews need to establish their own state. Why? I don't think that's the case. I guess it means what you mean by if America fell. But yeah, sure. Like it goes, Israel has some of the most attractive people on earth. That's true. It is a very attractive country. Like it's hard to deny that. And I don't know why. Like where does that come from? Who knows? Maybe like a mix between Ashkenazi and Sephardi, like all together. I'm not sure. Not sure, but yeah, very high ratio here. Daniel goes, can't stand TikTok activists pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, like most other social media, there's a lot of cringe there. And you're asking if I've ever been to the West Bank. Yeah, I have been quite a few times. I was there as a soldier. And I have family that lives there, so I've visited them multiple times, more so when I was younger. And I've been more recently for like some peace meetups in Beit Jala and Gush Etzion. The home does meetups there where we meet with Palestinians, so that's generally in the West Bank, so I go. Ideologically, how do I feel about just going to the West Bank? I'm not sure. It's a tricky one. Like, I wouldn't serve there. I wouldn't serve there now. If I was called as a reservist to go to the West Bank, I wouldn't. But visiting family there, I think I would probably still do that. And to meet Palestinians there, sure. But like Mordechai, like who was on the channel once, he lives in the West Bank. He invited me. I might go visit him. And I would go with the mission. You know, he claims, and he's you know, he's pretty, I don't want to label him as extreme, but if you heard my debate with him, he was saying some pretty radical stuff, you know, way more militant than me, let's just say. But, you know, he's telling me about all his Palestinian friends there, and their kids come to play with his kids, and they're all having fun together. And these two Palestinians had a fight, and they called him to be the, in Hebrew, it's a borer, somebody who like deals with like conflict. I don't know what the term in Arabic is. But so, you know, I want to see that. I want to experience that. I want to see somebody who's considered like a far right settler and his actual day-to-day relationship with Palestinians. Like, this is something worth better understanding. So I'll probably go visit him and see what's going on there. Near goes mediator. Yeah, they called him to be a mediator, but two Palestinians fighting. How was my time as a soldier there? So my awareness of the conflict was close to non-existent back then. I didn't see any. I didn't have any qualms with it at the time. It was just a perfectly natural thing to do. I was in the army. West Bank is where we were sent. That's where I served. In hindsight, I now see certain things that we did that obviously are not okay. Let me give you an example. There was just one time where you do like these patrols where you're driving around. Okay, innocent enough, not really bothering people. But then all of a sudden the officer's like, okay, we're going to set up a checkpoint here, just in the middle of the road checkpoint. And there you have it, like me, a 19-year-old, stopping cars, searching them, and then saying you can go. I'm like, yeah, this is what soldiers do, right? But like, imagine being a Palestinian and you're on your way home from work and there's just a random, not even an expected checkpoint, a random checkpoint, and then some teenagers like looking through your personal belongings. Like, no one deserves that to happen to them, right? So obviously it's a pretty dehumanizing thing to go through, and I was in that sense the dehumanizer, but I didn't realize it at the time. And what's interesting is many of the Palestinians treated me kindly even at that moment. Like, one of them, I found this rock in his in the glove compartment. I asked him what it is, and he said labane kashe. I think it's called in Hebrew even labane. Labane is like generally made from goat cheese, but sometimes cow cheese. It's like a sour yogurt. It's very delicious. So this is a rock form of it. I've never seen it before. I'm like, what is this? He told me. He's like, here, take it. You can have it. So he gave me a gift that I found. I'm like, cool. I ate it. It was interesting. Another guy had a whole bunch of bread in his trunk, and I asked him if I could buy one. He said, sure. And we did a little transaction. I actually got in trouble for that. You're not allowed to do that. So these are some interactions I had. You know, I never viewed. I didn't view Palestinians as like. I didn't have any hate towards them. I just viewed it as me doing my job. These are people, but I need to do my job, and I treated them with respect. But again, it's still for them dehumanizing. No Palestinian driving home should just need to be stopped and searched by a foreign militant, right? It's dehumanizing, and we can understand why Palestinians object to that. And then look, the case can be made, oh, but it's security. But you could justify all sorts of things through security, right? Security, we could put a microchip in every Palestinian just so we could track them. Security, right? So like you could take security to any extreme you want. So I don't accept everything we do as just security. Like there needs to be a limit to what's okay, and I think we cross that limit all the time. Another story. I'll learn to guess if it's like cottage cheese. Yeah, just not clumpy and stuff. It's smooth. It's more like sour cream, I would say, but yummier than sour cream. Casimir, I just want to give this attention real quick. Adar should have at least 2 children to maintain his line. The private culture and genes of such a spirit and his ancestors deserve to be maintained. Repent and procreate. Yeah, my grandfather tells me the same thing. There's genes and then there's memes. Do you guys know how the term meme was created? So we all know meme as like an internet meme, but it was actually Richard Dawkins in The Selfish Gene, which was written in the late 70s. I believe it was 76 or something. Still very relevant today. It's still taught in classes of evolutionary biology. But he was explaining, so he explains in The Selfish Gene that the gene is the single unit of survival. That's not us that are surviving. It's genes that want to survive, and genes built vehicles to help them propagate. We're just vehicles. So he's like, genes are units of survival, but humans are different. They have units of culture. And you hear him thinking out loud. He's like, I'm looking for a term that's like gene, that's short and easy to say. Maybe let's use the word meme, which means to mimic in Latin. He's like, let's go with meme. And you actually hear his thought process and how he coins the term meme. And for him, meme was just culture, like a unit of culture. So an internet meme is a type of meme. It's a form of culture, but a meme could also be like a song, and it could be an idea. So where am I getting at? I'm way more interested in propagating memes than genes. I'm not opposed to propagating genes, but propagating memes, you don't have much responsibility. You don't need to take care of the memes. You can just spread them, and hopefully they impact the world. Genes, there's a lot more to be done there. And I would say that the world has a lot of genes out there, but I don't think my genes are special or superior in any way, shape, or form. I'm more confident that I could spread good memes than good genes. So to me, it just seems like a better approach. Obviously, it doesn't need to be one or the other, but that's kind of what I tend towards. Yep, Orgo's meme, a cultural gene. Maybe someone can find the exact Dawkins quote, because it's brilliant how he. George, I see you're going. Thank you, George, so much for the stuff. I hope you come back for a future episode. So, Danny, I don't know if you heard, but I already mentioned I wouldn't serve in the West Bank, and I wouldn't go into Gaza. The only thing I would do as a reservist was either something non-combatant, or if it was like if Israel got invaded, let's say by Syria or like some foreign army, then I'd take a combat position to defend Israel. Although I think that there's better combat soldiers than myself. Like, they should probably use me for something else at this point. But I did serve in a combat role. But no, I wouldn't serve in the West Bank. And the West Bank didn't really change my perspective. It's only after the fact, after I started like understanding more about the conflict, that I thought back about my time as a soldier in the West Bank, and I understood that some of the things I experienced there are inhumane and just absolutely wrong and not justifiable. So like another story was these 2 Palestinians were arrested for stone throwing, and they were zip tied and eyes covered, blindfolded, and left in like a a military van overnight for them to get processed or for their families to pick them up. I'm not sure what the exact story is, but I was told that I need to check on them every few hours and bring them water and food, take off their zip ties so they could pee and whatnot. So actually, the first time I went to check on them, I actually didn't bring my gun, which you're meant to have your gun on you at all times, but I didn't. And then I opened the van door, and they got their zip ties off and took their blindfolds off, and they're just staring at me. Could have been a very dangerous situation, but they just looked at me. I told them that they need to. I'm sorry, I need to zip tie you again. But you know, I spent the night with them, like visiting them every once in a while, and I was told to bring them just hummus and pita, but I decided I felt bad for them sitting there all night in the car, so I brought them like some desserts and stuff as well, and they actually got mad at me for doing that, and they said the zip tie was on too loose, and they made them tighter. So that genuinely bothered me, and this was before I had any understanding about the narratives or anything like that, but just you know, basic human like understanding of one another, like whatever they did wrong, like zip ties hurt when they're tight, and you know, let them get a little jello with their food, like whatever, you know. So that's another experience I had. I mean, besides that, you know, I will say this: the majority of the interactions between soldiers in the West Bank and Palestinians are, let's call them neutral, right? They're obviously not positive, but they don't involve abuse. But there very much is a significant amount of soldiers that abuse their power, whether it's speaking to Palestinians in a dehumanizing way, whether it's being too physical with them. Another example, this is a story from my brother who was an officer in the army. He served in the West Bank. He said that his officer, the Mempei, which is a battalion leader, every morning would go to a Palestinian village and shoot a whole clip of bullets in the air. And my brother asked him why he's doing that. He said, "Lirot nochechut," to show our presence. Okay, that's obviously fucked up. So there is all too much abuse power that's unchecked, very little accountability, and this is something we need to do much more to stop. The case could be made that we need a security presence there, but the abuse of power cannot be justified. There's zero moral justification for it whatsoever, and I'd like to see Israelis be more vocal against this, not just those who oppose Israel. Cosmer goes, typical leftists spreading their evil memes to infest conservative genes, the ones that actually procreate. Yep, that's the goal. That's the goal. And then jokes aside, private culture, how you run your family is not something you can spread. Yeah. I mean that's a fair case. Again, but there's a cost. So Masha, I think it's Masha, Sasha, Masha. Why does your name start with a mem sofit? I'm not sure, Masha, but Masha says support the troops. What you say is completely false. So support the troops is one claim. Fine, you want to support the troops because you feel like they play a role. Fine. You're accusing me of lying. You think I'm sitting here and making up stories to demonize Israel? Is that what you're saying? This is literally my experience as a soldier in the West Bank. What is my interest in lying? It makes you uncomfortable, I realize that. But just because you're uncomfortable because of the truth doesn't mean it's false, okay? So accept that the Israeli army does a lot wrong. Every single day they do something wrong. Every single day there's abuse of power. As I said, the majority of interactions are neutral. They don't involve abuse of power. But even if 10%, even if 5% involve abuse of power, that is all too much. That's a lot of harm caused, and we have a moral obligation to speak out against that. So no, I don't appreciate you saying that's completely false. And now you continue to say they should be tougher. Okay, so you just want to brutalize Palestinians. I see where you're coming from. Okay, fine. You're in that camp. I get it. For those wondering why you can't see Masha's comments, it's because it's on Facebook. Iran, you're asking why they did that in reference to what? Sorry, I sometimes see a thing a little bit delayed. Yo, let's get a few more super chats. Come on, crew. We got this. We got this. Let's get those super chats going. So, Salam, I don't know if I answered this, but I again, serving I don't think is inherently bad because, let's be real, if Israel didn't have a military, we would die. Like, I don't think that's just fear-mongering. I think that's pretty obviously true. So, I don't object to serving in the military, but I do think that you could protest and say, I refuse to serve in the West Bank or refuse to go into Gaza. Like, I think these are all legitimate. And I also think you could be a conscientious, how do you say that word? Conscientious objector? Like, I think that's fine. I'm not triggered by people saying they don't want to serve because of what the military is doing. I think that's a perfectly legitimate form of activism. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, I don't object to the existence of the IDF at all. I just object to a fair amount of their conduct. Orgo's culture can propagate and change much more quickly than genes. Also very hard to destroy. Yep, true. Oh, so Iran, you're asking why would the one guy make the handcuffs tighter, the zip ties tighter? I mean, that soldier just, he doesn't like Palestinians. He views them as, at least those ones, right? They threw rocks. Those are scum. They're terrorists. That's how he views them. He's like, no, fuck them. I'm going to tighten them. To me, like, even back then, even before I had any understanding of the conflict, it just seemed wrong. Like, cool, people do messed up things. Doesn't mean you should suffer. Like, to me, that intuitively still, I understood that to be wrong. But there are all too many soldiers who would have acted exactly how he did. So Masha is now saying these are terrorists they face every single day. If they don't handle them, they would kill every single. So let me tell you this. There are so many Palestinians who are not terrorists. Actually, let me make this even clearer. The majority of the harm caused because of our military presence are to non-combatants. The vast majority. Sometimes the IDF stops terrorists. Sometimes we kill terrorists, but there's a lot of harm caused to non-combatants. Let's talk about one simple policy which was recently changed. It's called, what's the term in Hebrew? Mipui, mapping, right? It's to get an understanding of that the layout of houses in the West Bank. You know, the way, and non-combatants, we just want to know how houses are structured for intelligence reasons. You'd wait till the night when everybody's sleeping, and you'd literally raid the house. You'd knock on the door at like 2 a.m. and raid the house and search it and map it out, okay? Regardless of if there are any combatants, any suspected combatants in that house. How do you justify that? Is that just us being hard on terrorists? No. Our security apparatus is not only, well, I'm not going to say it's not only based on security, but not every action can be justified by security. Like, there's a limit to how much collective punishment you could put a population through. So no, Masha, I don't accept it. I know you support Israel, but Israel is not an angel. Israel does a lot wrong, and you could support Israel and still condemn Israel. And you know what? People will take you a lot more seriously if you're going to criticize Israel. Like, when all you do is support Israel, no one's listening to you. The only people listening to you is people who already agree, right? So if you want to change minds, you need to be honest about Israel's critique. So Synagogue of Steak is saying it's justified. What? Mipui? Going in the homes at night is justified? Just clarify that before I continue. Yeah, Learn Think goes, doing that causes hate. Okay, Masha, now you're saying just look at the Iron Dome, only defensive, not offensive at all. But that's not what we're talking about. Obviously, Israel has defense. Again, whatever, I'm going to stop engaging because it's just not a logical conversation. Like, that's just a complete deflection. You're right. Israel has defense, sure. That doesn't mean everything they do is right. And that doesn't mean you can't criticize them. And that doesn't mean criticizing them is lying. Yeah, Synagogue of Steak. I figured you're also the Church of Meat as well. I just don't know what you said is. I just don't know what you said. It's justified. I don't know what you said is justified. Yeah, so Salam, the Mipui policy was recently changed just a few months ago. They reported they're not going to do it anymore, which is a very positive development. And I can assure you Jews are not going to start being killed because we're not doing this. So it never should have been done in the first place, but thankfully it's been stopped. Definitely a step in the right direction. Hey, super chat. Thank you, MK Matt. $10. I very much appreciate it. Just tuning in. Maybe it was already addressed, but thoughts on growing sentiment that if the U.S. provides aid to Israel, the Iron Dome, equal aid should be given to Gaza and the West Bank. From what I understood, and please fact check this, that Palestinians receive more aid than anybody else in the world. So I think they might be already receiving, but please fact check it. I read it somewhere. I'm not sure if it's true, but I think they already receive tremendous amounts of support. And I'm completely on board with Palestinians getting support. I would want the support to go to actually improving the lives of Palestinians and not to further militarizing Hamas. I just think that's a better use of funds. So I think the support probably shouldn't just be a blank check. It should be for goods and services. But yeah, sure. Like improving the lives of Palestinians is very important. Very important. Yeah, so or is confirming it actually more aid is given to the Arab world. Do we know actually the numbers on how much if Palestinians are actually receiving more aid than Israel today? I think it's so let's just me and Masha. Masha, I'm happy you're interacting. Like you normally don't come to YouTube, so I guess it's positive that we put this on Facebook today as well. While we obviously don't agree, let's find something we could agree on. So you wrote, Israel has a right to not be attacked just like every other country. That's all. I agree with you completely. There we go. And I'm happy you're joining us today. And I say, love you, don't be mad at me. Plus infinity. Don't worry, I'm not mad. Just an impassioned pushback, we can call it. Nir, you're asking about Hamas. I'm too tired for that now. We're 2 minutes 30 in. Get me on the next live stream and we'll talk about what I think about Hamas. But I have a few thoughts. Cool. We will wrap it up. Wait, hold on. I saw the other day someone in the live stream was doing polls. Do you guys see that? Hold on. How do you? I said I'm going to look at how to do this. Somebody was literally doing a live stream and asking questions and doing polls while it was happening. Oh, by the way, if anybody's new here, like and subscribe, if you like what we do, like and subscribe. We're doing live streams every week. But let's see, how do you do a poll? Ah, cool. Hold on, check this out. Should we do an after party on Discord? Hi guys. If you want to do an after party on Discord, wait, did it happen? Wait, where'd the poll go? Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your phone. Oh, there we go. Cool. You should see a poll pop up. So we're gonna wrap it up. But if you guys want to do an after party on Discord, vote. And let's start using this poll feature more. It's pretty damn cool. – 100% say yes, but out of how many? Synagogue of Steak, thank you so much for the $2. Money to the Palestinians never goes to the people. Yeah, I think that's definitely a legitimate concern. I mean, if you look at like PA officials and Hamas officials, they're filthy rich while their citizens are dirt poor. So, isn't that interesting that we use an adjective, filthy rich and dirt poor? So whether you're rich or poor, there's an adjective of a dirtiness to describe that. Interesting. Just thought about that. Casimir, I don't know where this talk about eating dinosaurs came from. Casimir goes, I ate some grilled raptor earlier today while listening. I'm going to grill some swimmers tomorrow. So you mean you ate chicken? Is that what you're saying? Had some chicken? Do you guys know that they discovered that they think that most dinosaurs had feathers? Even the T-Rex had feathers. Fascinating. Another interesting thing about dinosaurs are like a very broad classification of animals. It's kind of like saying mammals, right? And they lived in such a long span of time that it's hard to imagine. So we are closer. The T-Rex is closer to us in time than they are to the existence of the Stegosaurus. Let that think in. Let that sink in. We are closer to the T-Rex in time than they are to the Stegosaurus. That's how long the dinosaurs existed for. Crazy. Hard to comprehend. And since we're already on this little factoids about time, Cleopatra is closer to us than she is to the building of the pyramids. What? Crazy. Yep. Cleopatra is closer to us than she is to the building of the pyramids. Mind blown. Okay, let's see how this vote went. Who's that 11% that voted no? I guess it's people. I know exactly who they are. People who don't have Discord and are having FOMO. So I understand. FOMO is very, very real. You could even understand it from like an evolutionary perspective, right? It's like secrets are being traded, deals are being made, connections are happening, and you're missing out. So you feel like you're losing your place in the social hierarchy, right? FOMO. Makes sense. Link to the Discord. MK Matt, let me just I see you made a clarification about your funding. Well, so people are saying that then if America funds the Iron Dome, then Gaza should have an Iron Dome. But the Iron Dome is an Israeli weapon. Like, Israel invented it, so we're not going to sell it to Gaza. So that's not even a relevant. It's not a relevant concept. But like, you're saying, should they have some kind of missile defense systems? Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't even object to that, because I do think Israel needs to take a more diplomatic approach. And if Israel had to pay for the Iron Dome themselves, then they'd be more likely to take a diplomatic approach. So I could see a good case to be made for that. When America's paying for the Iron Dome, when it's very easy to just bomb Gaza with no real like military threat repercussion. It doesn't really incentivize us to be diplomatic. It's much easier to just be militant. So I could see that. I think there's a legit case there. So I'm pulling a Peterson. Why? Because I took that evolutionary perspective. Yeah, perhaps. All right, last question, then we're going to wrap it up. Adar, are you vegan? I'm not vegan, but I support veganism. I think that there's a very strong moral case for veganism, and there's not a good counter argument. I was vegan for 1.5 years, but I got very thin and didn't feel so healthy, so I started eating a little bit of meat. Although in recent years, I kind of increased my intake of animal products, which I don't even have a good justification for. I do consider it to an extent to be immoral. So here's me acknowledging hypocrisy, that I'm not vegan, or at the very least, like, I don't think everybody can be a healthy vegan, so perhaps I'm one of them. But even if you can't be a healthy vegan, I think we should all make an effort to minimize the animal products we consume. And I'll acknowledge that I don't make enough of an effort to reduce them. I try, but I could do better. And just very shortly, why I think that there's a strong moral case for veganism and not a strong counter case. It's that it's true that for us to live, we need to kill, right? So like even animal agriculture, plant agriculture kills some amount of animals. When we till the dirt, we're killing mice and insects, right? Building homes, cutting down trees, right? This all kills animals. So no matter what you do, animals are going to be harmed. But there's a difference between animals being killed as a result of an industry and an industry that in itself is the exploitation of animals, right? So a factory farm is one of the most brutal concepts ever. Imagine a chicken, like even eggs. Let's talk vegetarian. People say, yeah, it's just eggs. Have you ever seen how a chicken lives in a tiny cage where it can never spread its wings, where will never feel the sun? It's literally a life of torture. We put animals through a life of suffering for a few minutes of pleasure on our taste buds. How does that make any sense whatsoever? The case could be made if you need it to be healthy, fine. But the majority of the animal products we're consuming are not for health, not for health reasons. In fact, so much of what we consume is junk food. So, for example, if you're going to eat a cake that has eggs and butter, you can make a cake that's vegan. It tastes pretty much just the same. So there's no reason to be adding this stuff into desserts. Mayo is not a health food. You don't need that to be healthy. But mayo comes from chickens that have been tortured their entire life. So how can we actually morally justify this? I don't really think we can. In fact, I saw, what was the quote? It's like, if animals had religion, their devil would be depicted as human. Something like that. Yeah, so Daniel's saying I'm thinking of being vegan not for moral reasons, but for environmental reasons. That's another very strong reason. I mean, animal agriculture is one of the most destructive industries to the environment. And then, yeah, like it goes free range organic. There's definitely a better way to eat animal products, but the vast majority of animal products are consumed from factory farms, right? Most people aren't willing to pay premium. I think that so vegan cake is horrible. No, look, there are so many good vegan desserts. Like, come to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the vegan capital of the world. Some of the vegan desserts I've had will blow your mind. It's indistinguishable. Yeah, so Learn, Think, Goes, try to have local food from local growers. This is all obviously preferred. I think that that first of all, there is more global awareness. You know, the global vegan population is growing, vegetarian population is growing, although it's not 100% true, because like certain countries that are now becoming more developed, like in China, they're starting to eat more meat. India, they're starting to eat more meat. So the global trajectory is iffy, depending, it depends what you're looking at. But I think that the solution will probably be lab-grown meats in the future. You can imagine if we could grow burgers in a lab for a fraction of the price, doesn't involve the destruction of the environment, doesn't involve animal abuse. Like, that's obviously just going to be much more preferred. And it's funny because people are like, but that's weird. It grows in a lab. Okay, but like, you're grossed out by that, but not like a cow living in its own shit that's filled with hormones and antibiotics. Like, why is that better? It's just what we're used to. Yeah, Elias, I see you're saying you want to come to Tel Aviv and try vegetarian and vegan. Yeah, every menu in Tel Aviv has they mark the vegan. They mark the what's vegan. I know there's other places that do that, but like there's pretty much no place you'll go to in Tel Aviv that doesn't have many vegan options. Anyways, so yeah, we're gonna do an after party in Discord. I'll share the link one more time. When you join Discord on the left-hand side, it says lounge. Click lounge and it'll be connected via voice. You don't need to speak. You could stay on mute, but it's a way to hear other people speak. It's just a way for a group conversation. I don't know if I'll join. I actually need to take a bus back to Tel Aviv, so maybe on the bus I'll join you guys for a little bit. As for live streams coming up this month, hold on. Kashmir, I don't know if I want to get into this, but I've heard this argument. My morality is based on other beings' ability for moral reciprocity. I don't assign value to animals that don't have. I mean, we're not going to have a debate now, but if you want to come on the program, I know we spoke about you coming on. This is something we could talk about, but like just that argument itself, I see so many issues with. So first of all, so you think there should be no laws against animal abuse. So if I literally want to just abuse dogs for fun, you're cool with that? Because there should be no moral value? Like, do you agree with that? And let's say a human in a vegetative state, there's no moral how do you say that word? That reciprocity, moral reciprocity. So, right, someone in a vegetative state, does that mean they don't have rights? Could you abuse someone in a vegetative state? I genuinely want, like, again, you don't need to answer now. Food for thought. So when we do have, maybe we'll have this conversation live. You could have prepared answers for this, but I don't that moral framework to me just doesn't really seem to make sense. I've heard Destiny, who's a big Twitch streamer, make a similar case, but I don't agree with it. Okay, yeah. So I got distracted. So yeah. Discord. As for live streams coming up this month, September was a little slow because of the Chagim. We're going to pick it up a notch in October. By next week, you should see us in the new studio, which I'm very excited about. We don't have so much booked, but obviously we'll have at least one a week, maybe two. We will have Yosef Adar on the channel towards the end of the month. For those who don't know, Yosef Adar is an Israeli Arab who's a very, call him an Arab Zionist, I guess. Very pro-Israel Arab, very controversial figure. So I'm very excited to have him on. We're going to have a little one-on-one chat. Yeah, and that's it. Again, recommendations for people you want to see on the show, things we could do better, topics you'd like to see us discuss. Maybe you want to come on the show. Maybe you have an idea for some concept we bring forth. Let me know. Reach out to me. My contact information is in the description. As always, it's a great pleasure doing this with you all. Lots of fun. Thank you all for the support. Thank you all for being here. Until next time, friends.